I'll start the script and keep it flowing naturally without a conclusion, as requested. There are performances that people remember because they were technically perfect. And then there are performances that stay with people because of how they made them feel. What happened in Las Vegas wasn't just another concert night. It wasn't just another stage. It wasn't even just another Jimin performance. No. Something felt different. Something felt bigger. And if you were there, if you were standing somewhere inside that sea of purple lights, surrounded by thousands of voices and pounding anticipation, you probably felt it too. That strange feeling in your chest. That feeling that tells you you're witnessing a moment you'll be talking about for years. The kind of moment that makes time slow down. The kind of moment that makes people pull out their phones, not because they want a video, but because they're afraid they'll never experience something like this again. And honestly, you guys, can we talk about the way the entire atmosphere changed the second Jimin appeared? Because that was the first thing everyone noticed. Before he even sang. Before he even moved. Before the music had a chance to fully explode through the speakers. The energy shifted. It was almost impossible to explain. Thousands of people were already screaming. The venue was already alive. The lights were already flashing. But somehow, the second Jimin stepped into view. Everything became louder. The cheers. The emotions. The excitement. It felt like a wave crashing through the entire stadium. And what makes this even crazier is that US media couldn't stop talking about it afterward. Not just fans. Not just ARMY. Media outlets. Reporters. Writers. People who have covered countless artists and countless concerts. People who see performances every single week. Yet somehow, they found themselves talking about Jimin. Again. And honestly, can you blame them? Because the moment he appeared under those lights, dressed in a way that somehow looked both elegant and effortless, there was this immediate sense of presence. Not attention. Presence. There's a difference. Attention is something you demand. Presence is something you naturally have. And Jimin has mastered that rare ability to completely own a space without looking like he's trying to. How does he even do that? Seriously. How? 1 second he's standing there completely calm. The next second the entire audience is locked onto him. Not because they're told to look. Because they physically can't look away. And the thing that makes Jimin so fascinating isn't just his talent. It's the contrast. It's always the contrast. One moment he looks impossibly soft. Gentle. Warm. Almost shy. Then suddenly the music changes. His expression shifts. And it's like watching an entirely different person emerge. The crowd felt it instantly. You could hear it. The screams became louder. Sharper. More desperate somehow. Because everyone knew something incredible was happening right in front of them. But here's where things get really emotional. Because the most unforgettable moments weren't necessarily the biggest ones. They were the smallest ones. The moments that almost happened between the performances. The tiny expressions. The brief smiles. The little pauses. You know those moments. The moments that aren't part of the choreography. The moments that can't be rehearsed. The moments that reveal the human being behind the superstar. There was one particular moment that fans couldn't stop replaying. And honestly, when you first see it, it doesn't even seem like much. A simple glance. A subtle smile. A tiny reaction. But somehow it felt personal. It felt real. And suddenly thousands of people online were talking about the exact same thing. Because Jimin has this extraordinary ability to make massive venues feel intimate. Think about that for a second. Las Vegas. Thousands upon thousands of people. Bright lights. Massive screens. An enormous stage. And yet somehow, He can make it feel like he's performing directly for you. Like you're the only person in the room. How is that possible? Maybe it's the way he looks into the crowd. Maybe it's the way he allows himself to feel every moment instead of rushing through it. Maybe it's because when Jimin performs, you never get the impression that he's simply completing a schedule. You feel like he's living inside the music. And that's what US media seem to recognize too. Again and again, discussions focused on his stage presence. His charisma. His ability to command attention. But honestly, those words almost feel too small. Because stage presence doesn't fully explain what happens when Jimin performs. It's more like emotional gravity. Everything gets pulled toward him. Your eyes. Your thoughts. Your emotions. Even your breathing sometimes. And then came one of the most talked about moments of the entire night. But here's the thing. The moment wasn't explosive. It wasn't dramatic. There weren't fireworks. There weren't giant effects. In fact, the reason people couldn't stop talking about it was because of how simple it was. The music softened. The lights changed. And suddenly the atmosphere felt completely different. You could almost hear the audience holding their breath. Not literally, but emotionally. Like everyone was waiting, watching, feeling. And there he was, standing in the middle of it all. Not saying anything. Not doing anything extraordinary. Just existing in the moment. And somehow that was enough. Actually, more than enough. Because Jimin understands something many performers never fully learn. Silence can be powerful too. Stillness can be powerful too. You don't always have to move faster. Sing louder. Dance harder. Sometimes all it takes is a single look. A single pause. A single genuine emotion. And suddenly thousands of hearts are completely shattered. Did you feel that too? Because that's exactly what happened. People weren't just cheering. People were emotional. You could see it in their faces. Some were crying. Others were smiling through tears. Others simply stood there trying to absorb what was happening. Trying to hold on to the moment before it disappeared. Because that's the cruel thing about concerts. The most beautiful moments are also the most temporary. They arrive. They overwhelm you. And then they're gone. Which is why everyone becomes desperate to remember every detail. The sound. The lighting. The expression on his face. The exact way he smiled. The exact way he moved. The exact feeling in the air. And just when you thought the emotional peak had already happened, something else happened. The energy shifted again. The crowd became louder. The music hit harder. And suddenly the gentle atmosphere transformed into something explosive. This is another reason people can't stop talking about Jimin. His range is unbelievable. One moment he's making an entire stadium emotional. The next moment he's turning that same stadium into absolute chaos. The transition feels effortless. Natural. Almost unfair. Because most performers excel in one area. Some are powerful. Some are emotional. Some are charismatic. But Jimin somehow combines all of them. And the audience reacts accordingly. Every movement creates a reaction. Every gesture creates a reaction. Every expression creates a reaction. It's like watching a conversation happen between him and the crowd. Not through words. Through energy. Through emotion. Through connection. And honestly, that's what made Las Vegas feel so special. It wasn't just a concert. It felt like a shared experience. A memory being created in real time. A moment where thousands of strangers somehow became connected by the same feeling. The same excitement. The same admiration. The same overwhelming realization that they were witnessing something extraordinary. As the night continued, that feeling only grew stronger. The lights seemed brighter. The cheers seemed louder. The emotions seemed deeper. And every time Jimin appeared on screen, another wave of excitement rushed through the audience. You could practically feel it through the recordings afterward. Even through a phone screen. Even through clips online. The energy was still there. The emotion was still there. The magic was still there. And that's incredibly rare. Because most performances lose something once they're over. But this one didn't. People kept replaying clips. Rewatching moments. Sharing reactions. Analyzing expressions. Talking about tiny details that lasted only seconds. Why? Because something about that night lingered. Something about Jimin lingered. And maybe that's why US media couldn't stop praising him afterward. Because what happened wasn't just impressive. It was memorable. Not just memorable. Unforgettable. The kind of performance that refuses to leave your mind. The kind of night that keeps replaying in your head long after the lights have gone dark. And if you listen carefully to the fans who were there, you'll notice something interesting. Many of them aren't talking about specific songs. They're talking about feelings. They're talking about moments. They're talking about the atmosphere. They're talking about the way Jimin made them feel. And honestly, that might be the greatest compliment any artist can ever receive. Because years from now, people may forget exact details. They may forget set lists. They may forget certain performances. But feelings? Real feelings? Those stay with you forever. And somewhere in Las Vegas, under those bright lights and endless cheers, Jimin created another one of those feelings. Another one of those moments. Another one of those memories that people will carry with them for a very, very long time. And the more fans revisit the footage, the more tiny details they begin to notice.